Welcome back to an afternoon edition of Doggin. I am Molina Mike. I got Michael Panozzo of Billiards Digest, and I got Chad Charlo, Vice President of Diamond Billiard Products. Boys, how are you?
Doing fine,
Good.
thanks.
Good to Yeah,
What's go?
this is going to be looking forward to this interview. Thanks for joining us, Chad. There's a
You're
lot
very
to talk
welcome.
about when you talk. There's a lot to talk about when you talk about Derby City because it's just a unique event and it's just so there's so much there. so
Yeah.
there's a lot to talk about. But um, you know, you've been doing, you've been there since the very start of the Derby City Classic. Give us some idea of what kind of planning, preparation, and upheaval goes into putting this on, because you guys are running a business at the same time, a manufacturing plant, you know, walk us
Mike,
through a
that's a
little.
great point. So, the Derby City Classic takes from September all the way to January, a tremendous amount of time. And we have very few people that work on it all the way up to when it starts. Now, we hire a lot of people and bring a lot of people in to assist us for the event itself. But leading up to the event, we internally field all the calls, take the entries. We do all of these things internally, and it takes a lot out of our small company just to bring this
Yeah.
thing to fruition.
Yeah. Half
How long
from,
have you how long have you been with Diamond, Chad? For those who don't know,
I've been with Diamond for 27 years.
how'd you start?
I started, I was a banker, and Greg Sullivan hired me. I was actually doing trust funds at the time for some of the wealthiest people in Louisville, and didn't know much about manufacturing, but that's been one of the things that I've really I dove headfirst into that part of it because I can't sit still, and I just I like to I'm an energetic guy, and I like to move around. So you even inside our manufacturing facility, you'd have a difficult time finding me.
Do you play pool at
yeah.
all, Chad?
I don't play pool currently at all. I used to play every day while I was doing sales calls at Diamond, and I had a pool table in my office, and I would shoot while I had a headset on, and really enjoyed things. I can play pool. I'm not a great pool player. I've certainly seen the best for the last 27 years, and I really enjoy watching them do what they do.
How does your
What
how does your how does your pool game stack up against your motocross abilities?
My motocross is um, probably where Federer is, and
Wow, that's a
and
pretty strong statement there.
yeah, for the vet guys, that's about where I'm at right now. But I'm 52 years old. But as far as that's concerned, I've been doing that now. I've done that since I was 5. So
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. It's a good diversion from making pool tables. So let's
Yeah.
go
yeah,
back to putting Derby City on. Obviously this year the size of the field was enormous. You had over 450, I think, in all three fields, and over 500 in the 9 ball. Um, you know, did that give you any stress leading up to the event as far as how you're going to be able to handle that many players?
yes and no. So there are a couple of things. First off, here are the numbers that we had. We had 497 in the banks. We had 425 in the one pocket, and we had 526 in the 9 ball.
Oh,
Okay. Now that does not count the other events that we had going on throughout the Bigfoot, the bank ring game, and then the minis that were going on. But those were the three primaries, and those were extremely large fields.
what was the
Yeah,
largest
yeah,
up
they
until
were.
that point that Derby's had as far as a field as
Well, we've had a huge bank turnout, but the bank turnout was large because we set it up so that it was actually less expensive to sign up for 9-ball banks than it was to sign up for a spectator pass for the entire event. So we would get, we would get a tremendous amount of bank players, so to speak, at the the start of the event, and those would clear out pretty fast. Some of those guys would forfeit, and some of those guys would, they'd get beat really, really quick. So this altogether was one of the largest. We've had a couple other years where it was close to this, but this really was the largest one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, it was quite a bit. I'm curious when you started taking in all these entries and had the philosophy of opening it up this big. Um, I know you guys went down as far as pocket size to I think it was 4.25. Was there any cause for concern how that was going to hold up the event? In the overall, when you got guys that are around my speed, playing on tighter equipment that could delay tournaments for hours on end.
So yes, there were concerns with the 4.25 pockets, but that also was an unknown. We had never put 4.25 pockets in there before. I have seen 4.25 pockets throughout the matchroom events where we've provided tables, and that's really the reason why that we opted to go with 4.25. So in speaking with Greg, and Greg is the president of Diamond, Greg firmly believes that the 4.25 is where the top players should be playing. Okay.
Right.
And with that 4.25 pocket, those tables that we used at Derby, those tops are actually going straight from Derby City Classic, and they're getting shipped over to the UK Open. So we'll be sending all of that equipment over to the UK here in the next about a month and a half. So there was a reason behind the madness. There also, let me delve into a little bit about the numbers. So there's a spot where I knew we really could finish out 500 in all three divisions and not be late. We really could do that. But a couple of things had to happen. And one of those things, for future reference, is we have to put a limit on one pocket matches. We've got to. And that's coming from Greg, who is a one pocket aficionado. He has a passion for one pocket, and he loves it. Limiting the game kind of it's not good for the game. You want that game to be able to be played out as long as it takes, and that's something that we have always tried to abide by. But in a tournament setting, we are going to have to put rules in place to shorten up the one pocket matches. If the one pocket matches had not gone long, we still would have finished up with a 9 p.m. or in between 9 and 11 p.m. 9-ball match on Saturday night. It still would have finished out. It didn't, obviously, and that made some people upset. One of the other things, and I'm the one that made the call on this, and I'll take full responsibility for it. I opened up the fields, and there's a reason why I opened up the fields. Derby is not a professional event in the sense that it is not a cookie cutter pro tour event. Okay, by any means, it is not. Okay, so anybody that thinks that it is, you are misguided, and you just don't understand what we were attempting to do whenever this thing started up. Okay, so let me go back to the fields, because that part I am taking responsibility for. Whenever I decided to open those fields up and let them go as far as they could, it wasn't to get numbers. That's not what I was trying to accomplish here. I'm not trying to say, hey, Derby had this many players. Um, we're past that. What I was trying to do is to allow every player that wanted to play to be able to play. And I'm not going to name any names, but we had some guys in the 9-ball that were all the way at the end of that list that are actually in Europe right now. They're in Poland. Okay. They didn't sign up. Okay. They didn't sign up early. They waited until the last second to sign up. And I didn't have the heart to tell them that they couldn't get in the matches, that they couldn't play. And we had guys that drove from Mexico, you heard me right, up to play in this, and they didn't sign up. So there were people that were from all over the world that were standing in line and were looking. You should have seen how distraught that they looked. Please let me play. Please let me play. Well, I wanted them to be able to play. Okay.
Sure.
Not at the expense of the spectators or not at the expense of the top players, but I wanted everyone to be able to play. And I knew that there was a chance that this one could be the one that went the latest. I knew that. I had the perfect storm. I had 4 1/4 pockets, right? Which were untested in this type of an event. And then I had open fields. Okay. And Bad Boys did a phenomenal job running the event to the best of their ability based on our SQL Server software program, which is an excellent program, but they couldn't do any more than what they did. And they did. If you think about the amount of matches that were played in those 9 days, it'll blow your mind. No, unless somebody totals it up and really thinks about it, they have no concept of really what went on. And at the end of the day, I apologize to the spectators that did not get to watch a match at the time that I said they would be able to watch that match. That's really where my apology comes in. The next part of it, the players are tired. I don't really apologize that much for that. Derby is known as a marathon. It's not a get up at 9 a.m., eat a banana and some granola, practice at 10, play at 11, go and have lunch at 12:30, come back for one more match and then go to sleep at 8:30. This is not a cookie cutter pro event. This is the Derby City Marathon. And the marathon requires stamina. So that part of it.
I get that, Chad. But there's kind of a double-edged sword to that, and that is, if you look at Greg, and you were there at the beginning when Greg hashed this whole idea about the Derby. You're right. It is, an all-inclusive event. Everybody wants to play. His line was always, "I want people to think that they're a sucker if they don't sign up and play."
That's right.
And so it's all about the bigger numbers. And I agree, it is a marathon. And I talk to players all the time who, despite all its drawbacks, I love Derby City and I'll always go to it because it's so different. It's unique. But by the same token, players can't expect to get up at 9, have their match at 10, eat lunch at noon. But I was, there for a couple of matches where a player you had to wait for a round to be done to redraw, and a player who was scheduled to play at 2 had to wait until 5:30 for the redraw. So that there are certain times, don't you agree, that kind of go beyond this is just the course of business?
Absolutely, I agree. And even in reference to what you're speaking of, if we have the one pocket matches with rules that will limit those, that will cut down on exactly what you're talking about. And we'll be able to dial that back quite a bit. The other part of that is if we had more space, I'd put another 40 tables in. We wouldn't wait on anything. It's right now we're at that venue. We are looking at other venues, okay? But we have a good relationship with them,
Sure.
and we have a contract. So while we have a contract, we're going to abide by the contract and do what we have to do. Now, are we going to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Yes. I've already taken probably 4 or 5 steps towards a
Remedy.
sure, towards some type of remedy to cut back on the weight.
You mentioned the one pocket, Chad. What things are being tossed around? Is it limiting the field? Is it changing of a few rules? What's being considered to keep that under a tighter leash?
So for sure the field will be limited, and for sure you will have to sign up online before the event. Everyone will have to be signed up online. We're not going to take late registration at the event. We will only have a cancellation list there, and that would be, you wouldn't want to chance it that way. So that part of it, yes, and then there will be a rule change on the one pocket.
Okay.
Rule change in terms of instituting some kind of time limit or something as after a match gets so long, because the one thing about one pocket is you can limit the size of the field and it's still not going to stop a match from going 5 hours. So how do you reel
No,
that
so
part?
that's why I said we already have two pieces to that, Mike. We have limiting the field and we have a rule change. The rule change is not, as soon as I have the rule change, I'll post it. But
Okay.
that's not something where we make a real quick irrational decision based on something else to try to get a good outcome. We're going to take a group of guys with players involved in this to give us input, and we are going to put out a good rule. Okay. That's not, I don't just go, okay, well, here it is. We're going to limit this thing to 2 hours. And if you're not, we're going to spot this ball and you're out of there. It doesn't work that way. So we will have, I'll kind of call it a board of directors that'll make a decision on this together. And that way we all can provide good feedback.
We've addressed the
Right.
pocket size a few times here so far, and I'm curious. Is that is going back to 4.5 something that you guys are thinking about, or is the 4.25 here to stay?
That is still too early. It's undetermined right now.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
What you got, Mike?
Just kind of going back to the one pocket and trying to keep that down. It just seems like if there's one place that the 4.25 in pockets didn't help, it was probably in the length, attributing to the length of the one pocket matches. Players maybe will take less risk.
It slowed us down in the banks too. People played safe, and the players played safe in the banks on some shots that they normally, I think they would have fired in. They would have had a few more offensive shots had there been 4.5-inch pockets. So the average match was 15 minutes longer on 9-ball banks than with 4.25 pockets versus 4.5-inch pockets. So
Okay.
I like to quantify everything. That one I do have. I don't have the one pocket and the 9-ball yet to be able to tell you, but we do have that. We do have that data, and we will know here in the next few days. So just so you guys know, I just got this thing torn down. So we just tore the event down. That's almost 60 tables, lights, the whole thing. And there's a lot that goes into that. It's a lot of manual labor. It's not easy. I'd challenge anybody just to go out and level up 60 tables and get them ready. And I'm talking about ready for top players. Get them ready so that they're really, really level. Just that in itself is a feat.
Yeah, I'm sure. You talked about scheduling and you talked about the software system you use, which to a lot of people kind of looks, a little antiquated in one respect. Is there a way to find a method of alerting players when they're going to have to play instead of making them stand next to a table for multiple hours waiting for the redraw because they don't know, a round could end any minute, or it could be another hour, or it could, you know what I'm saying? Is there a better system, or have you looked into a better system for letting players know when and where they have to play?
Yeah, we have discussed one additional item that I think could work rather slick, and it's the ability to text the players when the next round is happening. And we've already talked to a SQL Server software developer that could implement that into our program. So something, here's what it is. It's continuous improvement. And, we certainly listen. We certainly know that we're not perfect. I'm by no means perfect. I'm human as human can be. But I do like to think that I improve upon things as we move forward. And we're definitely talking about some of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems that redraw is tough for some of these guys, even with the 9 ball. Guys were waiting around for hours on end. I remember going upstairs and just seeing, a room full of people, of guys just hitting balls and knocking them around, just waiting, waiting to find out when their match is going to start. And I guess they're waiting for a few guys to finish up. And it just seems to have a trickle down effect when you have that many players. It's good to know that you guys are looking into other options. That way it's not as stressful and wearing on some of these guys that are there waiting for a match to be called.
Right. So I see something on the side and somebody's asking about brackets. Brackets don't work for the Derby City Classic with a buyback right now. That's not the bracket doesn't work in the traditional sense of a bracket. And so I think a lot of people don't know that, and I hope that they understand with the buyback, the one-time buyback, the way that it is, and redrawing after every round. You don't have the ability to put up a traditional bracket. Okay.
Right.
I do have some ideas on that for the future as well, but just so everybody kind of understands where we're coming from in that regard.
So, did you ever consider not doing the redraw as your format?
I'll consider everything, but you would have to propose something great to me, Mike, before I would consider something else. If somebody came up, I'll listen to any and all great ideas.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
somebody could come up with something awesome, and I would like to use it too. Hey, if there's something that's really good out there, let's take a look at it and get hold of me, and we'll see if we can implement it.
Yeah, I mean, the redraw was, I believe that was Greg's idea right out of the gate, and it's one of the things that makes Derby City unique. And the last thing, that I would want to see is Derby City become like, any of the other tournaments. The uniqueness is what makes it such a cool event.
Yeah, without a doubt. There was you guys mentioned record numbers in the fields, Chad. But looking at relative to previous years, it seems like the payouts on the back end were the same. I think it was 16,000 for first in the 9 ball, 16,000 for first in the banks. How do we have more players, but then the payouts for these top players are staying at the same amount?
Well, once again, the event itself is not a pro event, okay? A pro tour event. So if you look at the payout, and the payout is posted now so that you can see every dollar of the entry fee and where that it went. And there were, over 375 players that cashed in, okay? So no, it's not top heavy. but because it's not a real pro tournament. The other part of that is that's why we do master of the table, though, so it can be, so you do get at least that the creme de la creme of the players that
Right.
do get an additional 25,000. So, you know, I looked at the play and looked at the payout, and it's always been that Greg wanted to pay out more
Deep.
players than to make it just top heavy. Because Greg and I even told Greg one time, I said, why doesn't the master of the table get all the 25,000? I don't even think the second and third should get 3,000 and 2,000. I think master of the table is one. Now you can make an argument for it either way. Okay. Greg won out, right? So that was his decision to do it that way. All of the money was paid out. It's just that more people down the list got to cash in. And I think that's one of the things that makes Derby great, because you get to go as you're not a top player, but you get to go to Derby. You might get to draw Efren Reyes in the one pocket. Okay. You might get to hang out, and then you might draw Shane Van Boning in the 9-ball. And then you might get to brag and say that you cashed in at the end of the event and tell all your buddies about it. So there are a lot of good things that you can leave with, along with being extremely tired and having, I always joke and say, raccoon eyes, but
Yeah.
the dark circles around your eyes. Look, I'm a punctual guy. I do not like to be late. It bothers me. It bothers me to be late. Okay, I'm like anal about it. I don't want to post up that a match is going to be at 9 p.m. and then it go all the way to 9 a.m. the next morning. I don't want to do that. All right, that hurts me. I'm not in this. I'm not in this to hurt myself. Okay, I'm not in this to bother myself mentally. That's not why we do this. You guys, everybody needs to understand really why we do this. Why does Diamond do the Derby City Classic? Why? Because Greg Sullivan has a true love for pool and wanted to give back to the sport. And he didn't want a traditional pool tournament. He wanted the culmination of all things billiards to come together. If you remember, even at the Executive West, we had all of the pool tables in there, but then at the Executive Inn right next door, we put Gabriel's billiard tables in there and had a billiard event at the same time. Yeah. And then we had an amateur event over there as well. We wanted to bring all things billiards together, okay? So that this was a pool party. It was a gathering of all billiard players, the umbrella of billiards, okay? Now, we've since gotten moved around, shuffled around to different venues and everything else. And I promise you, that's where we're at is not my choice, okay? But we don't have a lot of choices. We don't have, I don't have 30 different places around right now to choose from. It's just not that simple. So what we're doing is giving back to pool, and we are doing it because we're trying to advertise for Diamond. AccuStats, we pay for AccuStats to be there. We want AccuStats in there to put matches out, great matches out of the great players, from all over the world and on Diamond tables. We get advertising. So we have there's a very selfish reason why we're doing this event. But rest assured, if this event were this great big, everybody says you're making X amount of money, you're making millions of dollars, you're doing all these things. If we were doing that, I'd put on 12 of them.
I love that response.
Okay? Hey, I've got everything to do it. Don't think I can't package it up. It's all mobile. I can drive right now. I've got everything loaded up in 3 semis and 3 box trucks, and I could go to the next venue. Okay. I could drive straight to the next venue and do it again. That's not what this is about. This is about creating advertising for Diamond. And to be quite honest with you, I can't find the right venues. We would burn all the pool players out, and the schedule wouldn't work out because there are a lot of great events going on. That's one of the good things about pool right now. I'm seeing an uptick in pool from the amateur side, from the pro side. Everybody's talking about pool, right? Everybody's playing pool. Guess what? Pool, I still don't see that pool is a spectator sport. There are some hardcore spectators out there that like to watch it, but for the most part, pool is a participation sport. And most of the people want to participate. And at the Derby City Classic, every single person that wanted to sign up got to participate. And that I'm proud of.
Yeah.
You mentioned AccuStats when you were talking there, and I was there, so I didn't get to see it firsthand being at the house this time. But I heard a lot of complaints about the quality of the stream was cutting out quite a bit the first few days, and then of course you had that come together with the end of the 9 ball, which everyone was looking forward to, that ended up going overnight. What can you speak to as far as the people who had issues with the stream, and what's the game plan going forward to make it a better at home experience for everyone?
So with AccuStats, I do understand that they had internet issues. At the start of the event, the internet worked fine until it was an open internet. So they allowed every single person that was in there was on the same internet stream, basically. And so as soon as all the pool players came in and everybody started looking at their matches or looking at Facebook and downloading things and doing everything that people do, it went down. They had to get their own outside line. And once they were able to do that, it started to work fine. But it's really unfortunate. It's I know Pat and everybody at AccuStats, they were distraught by that. And I don't have any control over that. It's something that we've already spoke with them about, and they know that they will have to have their own separate line moving forward. I think that it'll be a fairly easy fix for the future, but I really apologize, but I don't. That's not part of what I do.
Yeah. No, it was once they got it hardwired, it was fine after that. Which I don't understand why the casino didn't do that right from the start, but I'm sure that's something that they'll address.
I agree with you, Mike. I agree wholeheartedly. I don't know why either. And I wasn't actually monitoring that. I had a couple other things going on.
Yeah. I want to touch on something that's a little bit sensitive, and you can just, tell me it's none of my business. I don't want to get into your bottom lines, but, I've seen enough discussion on the buyback money that makes me just curious of how you implement that, because the buyback money isn't part of your added money to each of the divisions. I assume that the master of the table, 25 grand comes out of that or whatever. But if you look at all the buybacks in there, my estimate would be that, it's about $100,000. I think there were probably say, why isn't that going into the prize fund? There could be some really good reasons for it. But I just wanted to broach that topic with you and see if you comment on it.
Sure, I'll be happy to comment on it. The buyback money goes into, first off, it goes into the rooms. So for all of the past champions, they all receive a free room for 10 days. And we pay just like what you guys do for the hotel rooms there. We spend about $50,000 on hotel rooms, just in hotel rooms. So that's part of it. The master of the table is part of it, and the Accustats crew, they're part of it, and it doesn't go that far. So it's those. It doesn't quite stretch out. It doesn't stretch out quite that far. You look at the everybody assumes how much, but that's about where it goes.
Yeah. Well, that makes total sense. And
Just for instance, the truss and the risers in there, more than it's about $30,000. So just to put truss and risers into place.
So I'm sure that none of my business, but I'm sure that the casino has to be pretty favorable to you because let's face it, a lot they spend 10 days in that hotel and casino, eating the food, drinking the beer, spending a lot of time at their tables. The casino's got to do pretty well when the pool player's in town for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I've asked for a meeting with them because I really want to delve into that a little bit more with them. I don't know how well they do, but everybody knows that they do well. Okay. I mean, that for the first time ever, we sold the place out. Okay. All hotel rooms were sold. And in fact, I mean, we had people, I didn't stay there. We had people that worked for me that I had to put in other hotels in New Albany because they were sold out and I didn't want to fill it. I wanted the pool players to be able to stay there. Okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had some of our truck drivers that had to drive back and forth to the event, which that's not a great way to have to do things. Just so that all of our players and all of our participants, all of our spectators could be in there. And I understand some people don't, they don't like the casino. They don't like the hotel. They don't have the luggage carts. I've heard about the luggage carts at least 30 times. And I'm sorry, I don't control the luggage carts. They don't have a concierge there. I mean, it's not the Four Seasons. I get that. I do. But the room rates, let's talk about the room rates real quick. The room rates, what I used to think was expensive 5 years ago, we're locked in, what is $129 a night? I mean, that you can't go hardly anywhere in the United States. That's pretty cheap. Yeah. It's not like Reno cheap. Remember, Mike, whenever we used to up in Reno, how cheap was it up there for the Sands? It was like $29 a night. But those days are gone.
What year was that, boys? What year was that?
That was in the 90s. That was in the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah. The Sands in Reno, you could stay there for practically nothing.
There was a couple of talks about the casino.
Real quick, so we've got a couple questions over there. The hotel does give us some free rooms. Randy Reinfeld wants to know. We do have some negotiated hotel rooms in there, but we don't have negotiated hotel rooms in there for all of the masters of the table, and we don't have enough to fill all of the Accustats crew and all of. I don't think they understand how many employees are actually on the floor there at the facility. But irregardless, it's I'm trying to be an open book and share these things with you. I challenge each and every one of you keyboard warriors to go out and put on an event. I'll bring the tables. If you can do a great job, I'd like to promote another event. I'd like to bring diamond tables there. So step up to the mic.
That's right.
Step up. That's right.
You mentioned Efren earlier, and I want to just get off the topic here for just a minute. But how great was it, and what, if any, did you see of Efren's run in the one pocket, and how cool was it if you did get to see it?
Great question. So Efren helped to establish the Derby City Classic. Okay. 100%. The magician helped to cement the Derby City Classic. And I'll give him accolades all day long for that. In fact, Diamond takes care of Efren. Okay. So Efren, we like Efren to come to the Derby City Classic, and Efren likes the Derby City Classic. Um, Everybody wants to watch Efren still. I mean, he's got an aura around him, a presence around him, and he's just that good of a pool player. So I monitored his one pocket every day, all day. And you know what? It wasn't hard to check to see where he was at and when he was playing, because the crowd, I
Look at the
couldn't get
crowd.
around it to hardly see him. Even on the TV table, it was standing room only. And how exciting was it that he went as far as he did at his age? I mean, that guy he's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and he raves about the Derby City. I mean, he makes no bones about it. The Derby City Classic is his favorite pool, his favorite tournament and pool. It's the only one that he really enjoys going to, which is, kind of sadomasochistic when you're a 68-year-old like
Yeah.
him, go through the grind that he goes through, because he played in all three divisions, and
He,
he just is a relentless pool player, and really, the Derby City was made for. I mean, he did. You're right. He helped build up the Derby City into being the event that it is, because he was so, he loved that event so much, and the Filipino players, especially in the earlier days, man, they were on that event, in huge numbers, always have been. So yeah, there's no doubt that he's had a big impact on Derby City, and it's had a big impact on him.
he's something else, because I went to bed like at 2 a.m. one night, and he was playing Sullivan Clark 9 ball, and then I wake up at about 10 a.m. Matches started, I think, like at 9, and he was already playing his 9 a.m. match when I got up the next morning, and then he finished off his run in the one pocket. He's something
And
else. It was something special.
you missed his 2 hours at the poker table in between.
Yeah, well, that was the craps table, Mike.
That
um,
or a couple of backgammon sessions in the hallway.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. You
Yeah,
break out a check for it. You break out a check. He's all over it.
I know it.
What else you got, Mike?
No, that I think it's great. I really appreciate. The one thing I always know about you, Chad, is that you are a straight shooter, and I knew you would be able to handle any questions we threw at you, and we appreciate your taking the time and appreciate your honesty. Um, we all love Derby City. There's nothing like it in pool. And you talk to the European players, and they come over here, and they don't get it until they get here. And once they get here, like, holy cow, there's nothing else like this in the world. If you're in the U.S., you get a little taste of it here, but you get the European players come over, and it's just a whole different ballgame, isn't it?
Yeah,
Well,
without a doubt.
I appreciate you guys taking the time
Yeah,
and interviewing me, and hopefully I've been able to provide some answers to some of the questions that are out there. I'm sure there are a lot of other questions, but I will leave everyone with this, and that is, just like I said earlier, it's about continuous improvement, and it's something that I strive for in Diamond, the Derby City Classic, and in myself, in my own personal life. So as you as you go about this year, I will assure you that we are working on some things to make the Derby City Classic better than it was this year, and to continue that on into the future.
Yeah,
we appreciate it, Chad, and we appreciate you and your time. And we know it's been a hectic week, and I can only imagine. You mentioned you just finished breaking down. I was burnt out leaving on Sunday, and you guys were still going at it. So, kudos to you, and we appreciate all y'all's hard work and effort.
All right, gentlemen.
yeah, yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
All right.
very
Well,
much.
We'll stay on, Mike, and talk
oh
about
yeah,
Derby.
yeah, yeah. We'll let Chad get out of here, and we're gonna keep
Go,
on talking about
Chad.
the Derby. So,
Yeah,
Chad, we
you
appreciate
go.
it, buddy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care. That was
Well,
great,
well,
Mike.
Mike, we made it this far. That was actually, I appreciate the candor and the openness. There's, and I'm guilty of assuming a lot of things and firing off. And part of the reason why we wanted to hold off on having a Derby recap show was because we wanted to do our due diligence and give them the opportunity to go and talk about it openly rather than us just assuming, what was going on in the back end and, what's going on in their minds when they're making decisions and things like that. I
Yep.
love that, they're at least open-minded enough to, talk about making changes, Mike, because I've met a lot of people in here in the industry where they're just stubborn, and it's
Yeah.
their idea is the best and they don't want to change it.
Yeah. No, he's they've got a great product. Again, the word unique is perfectly suited to Derby City because nothing else is like. So, from that side of it, you don't want to make a lot of changes. You do want to be a little bit stuck
Right.
because you created something that's, you know,
The whole world wants to go to.
so you try to tinker with it and make it a little bit better. But, there's not going to be huge wholesale changes to the Derby City because it's a phenomenally successful event from a fan standpoint. And from, like what he kept pointing out is that this isn't a pro event. It's not geared to the top players. They love having the
Well, see,
top players there. And
that's
they
kind
love
of
having,
where I found like a bit. It was kind of contradictory. It's like it's not a pro event, but yet they're you mentioned Greg wanting 4.25 for the sake of it being for
yeah,
the best players. So that's kind of where it was a little
Greg is,
rough at times.
no, I disagree a little bit because Greg has always been about allowing, making everybody play or allowing everybody to play the same conditions that the pros play, right? That's
Yep.
how he got his business started. His whole thing with, he changed the game by using a regular cue ball on a bar box on a coin table. That's so he's always been about, and they do love having the pros there. They love having effort there, but the top is never going to be huge, and they do that on purpose. And he explained why today, and that makes 100% sense. And it's totally, there's symmetry between that and what he describes as the philosophy of Derby City. More players, get everybody in there, get everybody playing, pay as deep as you can pay. Don't go top heavy. You're still going to get the top players because you love having the top players there, but they're not coming because it's a $60,000 top prize and everybody else is going to get everybody else is just dead money. So I think that's always been their philosophy, is to have huge numbers, and the pro players help. But if they lost a bunch of pro players this year for a number of reasons, and it didn't slow down entries. And that's the way they want it, right?
Right.
That's their turn. It's part of the mystique of it. It's part of the attraction of it.
Yeah, but it's got to be like it's got to be the total package, Mike, right? Because if people don't see how deep the players list was the year before, maybe they're not so inclined to show up there. If they don't see the pay-per-view being solid and how great the players are there, maybe they're not so inclined to want to show up and play. So I think, you know, I love his attitude towards discussing a lot of things. I love his openness because it's not easy to come out here and answer tough questions. Um, Alan Sword in the chat mentioned Greg Sullivan. I had the privilege of having lunch with Greg out in Sacramento, and he's right, man. That guy loves pool. He loves pool through and through. He's made such an impact in this industry. And it's funny because I got up in the morning the last day at I want to say like 8:30, and I was dead tired, Mike. And I saw Alex's post an hour before saying that he beat Shane and that he made Shane get his buyback, and they're still playing. So I thought, oh crap, they're probably still playing right now. And this is at 8:30 in the morning. I go downstairs. I watch the tail end of Federer versus Shane in the finals at Derby City, and afterwards, this is after they've already been up for well over 24 hours. I asked Federer, and I don't think I got it on the interview, but I asked Federer, I said, is it worth it? And he didn't even blink an
Yeah,
eye. He said 100%.
yeah,
100% it's worth it.
yeah.
So,
That's why
you know,
players will keep coming. It's not because of the top prize. There's a couple reasons. They love it, and I'm not a pool player, and it boggles my mind a lot of time when I see what these guys go through during the course of the week. We both
it's
say
brutal.
effort and wait, 2 to 5:40 to play his match, and he couldn't go anywhere because he was afraid that if they called his match while he was gone, he's going to forfeit, right? So you want to, and then you talk to these guys after they go through all that, and to a man, they're like, "Oh, 100%, I'm coming back next year. This is my favorite tournament." So someone mentioned the banners. There's some really cool things that Greg Sullivan came up with from day one with the Derby City, which made it such a cool event. He established that master of the table thing. Everybody wants to be master of the table, and that's why all the heavy hitters get into all three events. And it's 20 for the master of the table, which is really a nice little bonus at the end of the week. But it's about having that title, and then the banners hanging up there. That was a brilliant idea from day one to put banners of the winners up there, because that's what everybody looks at when they walk in there, and that's where they want to
What do
be.
you what do you see it? What do you see in every sporting venue on earth, Mike?
Yeah,
When you
banners, but
yeah,
you don't see it anywhere else in pool.
right, right.
So it's one of those things. You talk to Tony Chohan. What's the main reason he was so emotional and so tried so hard to win the Derby City one time? This is a guy who, $16,000. He don't that doesn't even get him interested in a money match, right?
Nope,
So
nope, nope,
it was.
nope.
It's having his banner up there in the rafters as one pocket champion next to Efren, who's in there 6 times, next to Scott, whoever. So, I mean, those are the type of things that make Derby special, and why all the players will always go to it and always support it.
It's sports, Mike. It's immortality, right? You're with the greats, and it cements legacies, right?
Yeah.
It's Tony gets a lot of respect already as it is, but he's
Yeah.
one of the guys, like, me and you were talking in private. If there was someone that I wanted to win and you wanted to win outside of Efren, and I think you asked, 99.99% of the people there, they wanted to see Efren win, because it was a great story and they root for the guy and he's a hero. And
I think what they all would want, I think if you went to everybody in that room, they'd say, I want to see Efren play Tony in the final. And I'm
everybody
okay
wanted,
with it, right? That's what everybody wanted.
yeah.
This is Cash Hennessy, fest, but that's what everybody wanted, and they got to play in the semifinal, and I knew that was a big deal to Tony, and so yeah, it was cool. But as long as we're on that topic, we should talk about some of the events that went on there, the actual tournament themselves.
Yeah, it was a grind without a doubt. It ended with a 9 ball that a lot of people didn't get to see. Like Chad had mentioned, it was held up. It was held up with a lot of the one pocket and the banks, a trickle down effect. But there was some great 9 ball. I didn't know until this morning, as a matter of fact, who knocked out Filler out of the 9 ball, because I was watching an interview with Josh before he played Alex Pagulayan in the World Championships.
Right.
And Josh says in that interview, we just played a couple days ago and he knocked me out of Derby City. I didn't know, because it was at, whatever time, 3, 4 in the morning, that Alex was the one who knocked him out. You had Federer, who finally got the 9 ball because he did not get it last year, Mike. He beat Shane Van Boening in a final. Did you get to watch any of it, Mike, at all?
I did. But you know what? That makes Federer, I believe, only the player in 20 plus years of Derby City to have won all 3 divisions.
Who's the other? Alex?
The other is Alex.
That's pretty elite company there.
They're the only 2 players who have a banner up there for 9-ball, banks, and one packet. That's astonishing that Federer's been playing this thing, for like 5, 6 years, and he's got 3 banners up there for the 3 different disciplines.
Well, and he's not even in his prime yet, if you think about it. It's the beginning for that kid.
Yeah.
He's still on the uptick. His consistency is scary, Mike. His high gear is unbelievable. It's a tribute to his fundamentals that carry him through. I think even as he starts to fatigue, um, you know, his mental toughness is something to be admired and respected as well, Mike. Unbelievable run by Federer. He loses to Conrad earlier in the day. There's just tons of killers left and right, and he had a brutal draw. I want to say he played Josh and then Jason back to back, if I'm not mistaken, in the 9 ball. After losing his round to Conrad, I think it was. Maybe it was for Tunsky. But yeah, I mean, what a phenom that kid is. I'm like,
Yeah, phenomenal. Good, really interesting, top of the 9-ball list. I mean, to see Alex up there, in the top 3, pretty amazing. Filler, not surprising. Sky Woodward, not surprising. Tyler Steyer, 8th place. It was a great run for him. tied with Jason Shaw and Donnie Mills. Good run for Donnie Mills.
Who
So it
picked
was
Donnie in the in the fantasy draft there, Mikey?
that would have been me.
A little bit you, huh? A little bit, a little bit of premonition, huh? You look like a real genius in this event, Mike. Back to back, I must
Well,
say.
he was the guy that I said I liked his chances because he was only going to play in a 9 ball.
Yeah,
So he
like
was going to get a lot of tired people, in his earlier matches or even his mid matches. And he did have a good run.
no, for sure. A lot of it you saw rise, the cream rise up, especially when it comes to Federer. Alex, like I mentioned, when it comes to this format, I think it lends itself, and I talked to Alex as much today about it lending itself this break format to his style of play because the break can be tough and inconsistent, and he can probably outmove you and beat you to the shot if you're gonna have an ugly rack. Kudos to Alex. I think he was the one that handed Shane his first loss. I got to be honest with you though, Mike. At 9 in the morning when I got there was a lot of balls being hit in the rail by Captain America. It's a shame though. Like and again they're going to address it, so I'm not going to keep on beating a dead horse here. But we were really robbed of some really amazing 9 ball matches that went down. The fans were. I didn't realize Shaw played Mike DeShane the night before. Alex versus Shane, which is always going to be blockbuster. A Federer versus Shane final that not a whole lot of people got to see it. And I know they can see it on the back end on Aki Stats, but it's not the same, Mike. It's not.
Yeah, oh, no, there were a lot of missed opportunities, and it's
Um,
but,
but yeah, Tyler, he was up like 7-1 against Kazakis earlier, and then he loses 9-7. But what a great
yeah,
run for him as well.
yeah,
He could really start making some steps here, Mike, finishing off of what was a lot of momentum from the Mosconi Cup because we all thought he played extremely well. Let's keep on moving along here, Mike. We got the one pocket, and this to me was just the story of the whole event. And it's not because I love one pocket, but it was because of the guy sitting there at number 3.
yeah, yeah. It made for more scoreboard watching than usual on one pocket. I mean, people were seeing, how's he doing, who's up next, who's still left, who's got a buyback. I mean, there was just a lot more interest in watching a lot of the one pocket matches because Efren was in there and running deep. Um, and it was just a ton of fun to watch, right?
It amazed me. It made the trip. Everybody roots for Efren. I remember seeing him. It was one of the first times I'd seen him was at Derby, as a matter of fact, and like in person, I mean. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking, it's not the same guy I've seen on live pool all these years. He wasn't the same player. And so when I'm watching him with the one pocket, I'm expecting a lot of the same. To be perfectly honest with you. And I went down late one night. It was a match against Filler, and I said I'm going to stream this one, and I want to watch it. And of course, we all know Filler's ceiling when it comes to one pocket and his firepower. And I thought, to be honest with you, I thought the old man was drawing dead until he wasn't. He was down 2-1 and ran seven and out one game against Josh when Josh gave him a window, and then 2 minutes later, I'm lying, probably like 5 minutes later, he ran 8 and out in the following game at Hill Hill. And I thought, okay, maybe it's just a blink. Maybe, okay, he had a good match. It's race to 3. And then he followed it up, Mike, with the next day, beating Sky, beating Alex amongst all players,
Beating
beating
Alex.
Alex.
Yeah.
I mean, it made the whole trip for me, Mike, seeing Efren do as well as he
I
did.
was I was sitting there talking to Cardona during the Alex Efren match because it was on the TV table, and he said Alex has a lot of pressure on him here because he was the heir apparent for Efren, and now Efren's
Yeah.
68 years old. Alex can't lose to him on this, on this thing, and but Efren just played jam up, and um, it was great stuff, great
It
stuff. The one
was.
pack was really entertaining
He beat
aside from the
Sky.
short match.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he beat Sky in like 20 minutes after coming off the win off of Alex. And you think that, okay, he's got another young gun. It's deep in the event. A lot of emotions are just coming through you because, the room was a buzz, Mike. I mean, the room when he's playing Alex was remarkable. I mean, the
Yeah,
silence in there,
yeah, it,
the tense moments, everyone just on the edge of their seat. It was unbelievable. and then the air kind of gets sucked out. Okay, he won, great. The story continues, and then he was up 2-0 on Sky before you even blinked an eye. Amazing, just absolutely amazing. We saw the match with Gerson when you're stalking him, in the background there, but he just it was just round after round where he was just playing Efren like, and that's why he's the
Yeah,
GOAT. It's unbelievable.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. It was a great event.
and Tony, of course, gets his banner. We can't overlook that because that was just amazing. I'm a big Tony fan, and we got to give him some love too because Tony wanted it, and Tony wanted it real bad.
I mean, aside from his, he got that 3-0 beat down to Hennessy the first time he played him. But aside from that, he was pretty dominant the whole week in one pocket. I don't think I think the final was the only win that he had that went the distance.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, he was hitting the ball pretty good.
Well, that match with Efren had a window. I remember at 2-1 Tony, I told my buddy because Efren was just in a real bad spot. Tony just had him in a horrible spot, and I said this might be his last shot right here. And he's got one thing to do, and he did it. He banked the 3 ball, and I don't think he got out, obviously, but he made a pretty good run and got out of a really tough situation. It showed me that he still got it. I hope this wasn't his last year, but you're right, man. Tony, I was really just fanning out for Tony, man, because he wanted that banner.
Yeah,
When I talked to him last year before the banks, you could tell it was important to him, and you hit the nail on the head. 16,000 don't do nothing for Tony. It was
yeah,
what it meant to being up there with all those legends and all those greats. And Tony, and this is one of the coolest things Alex said afterwards on one of my posts. He said, You're up there right where you belong. You finally got your banner, and that's where you deserve to be at." So I love the respect by Alex towards Tony.
yeah, yeah.
Let's shift over into the bank pool, Mike.
2 in a row for Federer, Mr. Banks. Did you think a couple of years ago you'd be referring to Federer Gorse as Mr. Bank Shot?
Yeah, no, he's intimidating, Mike, and people know it. Even the best players know it. He demolished Shane like 3-0, I think.
Yeah,
And it ended up him versus Evan, and kudos to Evan because Evan gave him all that he could handle, and Evan showed his class when it comes to banking. But Federer's just something else, man.
he is.
You
One of
just
the
you
coolest
just
one of the coolest videos I saw was it was on the streaming table when he beat Roland and just ran over him and he made his last bank and he went over to shake hands with Roland. Roland got out of his chair and dropped down to his knees and sat down
yeah, yeah.
and made me laugh. But yeah, there's people know when you draw Federer around, you're going to be entertained.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, without a doubt. It's yeah, it's amazing. It really is. Federer is Federer could really take the sport to the next level, not just with his play, but the way he handles social media, how much of a good kid he is. He does things the right way. As tired as the guy was, every time that everybody wanted to see him or take a picture with him, he smiled ear to ear. You know, it was
Yeah,
one of the things that really struck me, having been a couple times now to Derby, was and Chad talked about it earlier. Like when Efren was playing, you knew it because you could watch the crowd. I'll tell you what, Mike. If
same thing
if
with Federer.
it was the same thing with Federer. Every time Federer was playing and you walked in that room, you knew where it was at because there was a crowd watching, and there was like I don't want to say not as many. Well, it wasn't nearly as many people watching Shane and Sky. There was a ton of people, watching Federer. And it's no knock on Shane or Sky because they're amazing players and fan favorites and all those things, right? They're incredible. But it just shows that how uh, you know people want to see that kid and respect his greatness and what he's accomplishing right now because he's very vogue and it's because of his play and everything else that he checks off the box, Mike.
Yeah, interesting comment by Patrick Neal about being surprised that he's such a good bank player because when you watch him play rotation, he's never out of line, so you never really have to see him bank.
Yeah, it's true. It's
So,
true. But just so you
but
know,
now,
it's always there. It's always there just in case he needs it.
Yeah, well, just in case you think you're going to play safe on them, and if you leave any sliver of a shot that could be a bank shot, you regret that move.
Yeah, no, without a
So
doubt. But I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. He's obviously not playing in the World Championship because of his reasons, but we all know what dominating a force that he is, and he'll continue to be. It was it, it was Federer's week, but it was more Efren's week for me.
yeah,
For me that'll always be the story. But then it was also Tony's too. So as much as Derby City is a
I
drain,
was
and
surprised
when
this
and
year.
when I left there, I was really worn out. There was a lot of really awesome memories of it. A lot of things that I'll hold true to me, and um, yeah, it was pretty awesome, Mike.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things. Derby's just this weird thing that happens once a year, and it's it's going to be a car wreck, but you can't look away. And but it is, like I said, it is one of those events that you're going to see something really special when you go there, whether it's an Efren run, whether it's a Tony in one pocket, whether it's a master of the table run by somebody. You're going to leave there with a memory that's just like, this only happens at Derby. And that's why it's such a special event.
Well, it's I going back to Chad. We appreciate them coming on and the openness. I'm excited to see what changes they make, and their openness to feedback is something to be optimistic about, Mike. You know,
Yeah.
um, even
I,
even despite the headaches, from being there, like I said, I didn't have the issues watching pay per view, and I wasn't handcuffed to only watching what they put on. I was bouncing around that place all over the place, and there was tons of amazing, great pool. I really hope they don't schedule a world championship a couple of days afterwards, because I think the field just would have been that much better. Like you said, um, there's no event like it. There really isn't. So
yeah, good stuff.
anyway, Mike, you got anything else, buddy?
Nope. No, I'm derbied out.
All right, you and me both. I'm gonna see what we can find out as far as the world championships. Thanks to our sponsors at Seybert's for helping with all this fun times. Mike, we appreciate you tuning in, or for coming on rather. And yeah, we'll see all you guys